Someone said something to me that has really stuck, and it's, we absolutely need to have people, role models to look up to, but what happens when there aren't any? So my name is Mehak Sheikh, and I'm a 24-year-old young woman living in the western suburbs of Melbourne. So when I came to Australia, of course, I had a question asked to me about where I'm from, which is the very, basic question that everyone asks you. My answer was very complicated, but what I learned over time is that culture is created. It's not just an identity of a group, it's something that you practice on the go. So I was born in Kenya, but I identify as a Punjabi Muslim. And then when I was about 10 years old, we went to the UAE, so in Dubai or Sharjah, and lived there for 5 years. In between that, I also moved to Pakistan and lived there. So there's a little bit of back and forth. And then we came to Australia when I was 16 in 2012 and settled in the west of Melbourne, which is why I'm so very passionate about it. I started up a little social enterprise called Unconventional Learning. The reason I started that up is because I realized that we have so many life transitions around us, but there's no one who ever explicitly sits down and talks to you about that life transition. And it's very much led by my experience of migrating to Australia, my experience of being a young person, studying in the curriculum, and what I saw were the gaps. So I was like, well, if no one's doing anything, I might as well try. And that's when I set up ULearn. I knew that this stuff was available, but it's very CBD centric. It's very if you live in an affluent community, you'll get it. If you live in a central business district, you will get it. But if you live on the fringe, if you live in the western suburbs, in the regional and rural communities, it's very unlikely that these spaces are accessible to you. And if they are, then they're costly. And I would hate that cost be a barrier for someone to be able to access information. As a young woman of color, living in, I think, a predominantly Eurocentric society, there are some barriers that are very overt, and then there's some barriers that you don't see until you retrospectively look at your experience. But I know other young women like myself who, don't see themselves in places of leadership, so they don't feel like they can never get there. I can't believe I actually did it. I was recently looking back at all that material and felt a little like the emotions bubbling up because I never would have thought that I'd be able to put myself out into a space like that. I did run for local government elections, so it's very, very local, very place-based, and that's because of the passion and the love I have for the place I call home. So I really deeply think about the generation that's coming after me and what am I going to leave behind, which I think is one of that motivating factor to be able to do it. I definitely saw politics in the US and that influenced me, I think. So AOC or Ilhan Omar as examples of women who broke through this kind of systemic barrier in politics to be able to be seen and heard and then create change through that. I want to see if there's a way to get other young women involved. When I ran, I was one of 4 women in a group of, I think we were 25 people. I was the youngest person, and to me that was it's very jarring experience, but also it's doesn't reflect the community at all. It was a combination of a lot of things like that, a lot of moments and realizations that made me stand for council. I ran independently. My entire campaign was led by young people, but that just showed to me if you put a group of young, passionate people together, so much is possible. So at the moment with FYA, I support young people in creating youth movements that address social and environmental issues by running programs, capacity building programs, and social enterprise programs. FYA is the Foundation for Young Australians. It's a national not-for-profit, so we're very much about backing young people as they lead the change.